Hello, y'all. Welcome back to Mike's Moms and Mayhem. I am Kelly,
And I'm Lillian.
and welcome back. We are here for part two. So, if you can remember, in just a quick recap, we talked about navigating marriage and motherhood. It's more than a title and the unseen load of love. And we shared a lot of really good stuff, a lot of our beginnings of our marriage, how we met our wonderful husbands, how we navigated our path. And we realized, I think we've known all along, but I think we realize more so now that two different lives we both lead, but both figuring out love in this thing that we call life, this thing we call marriage, and this beautiful thing we call motherhood. So we are going to continue this as a part two because we got more to talk about, right?
That's a lot to be said. A lot to
There's a
be
lot
said.
to be said. This is a really large, huge, not title, but a topic.
Top.
Topic. Thank you. See, yeah, I'm gonna get
Welcome.
lost in the sauce. Right. Thank you.
Listen,
Um,
girl, a thesaurus is on my to-buy list. Let me just say
listen,
that
listen.
because,
And you said that last week, and I was like, that was funny, but that might be
right?
needed because
No, I meant,
this brain fog of mine, honey, this premenopausal brain fog is serious, honey. Look, another topic. Ding ding.
listen,
Woo, wait, honey. Every time we
we could
talk, we
talk
get
about
about this
peri,
topic.
pre, post, all of them.
We ain't
All
got
of
the post yet. I know you ain't got the post yet. So,
I'm hoping to get it soon because my
well,
goodness, this
well,
peri,
no, honey, yeah, honey, you're gonna be in period for a while. You're gonna be in period for a
uh,
while.
I think I saw something that said perimenopause can be up to 7 to 10
10.
years, something like
Yes.
that.
Yes. That's what I said. You got some time. You got some time, honey. Be one with Perry. Honey, because it ain't nice. It ain't nice, honey. Perry ain't nice. Perry ain't nice. But look, that's navigating, honey, womanhood. So that's definitely gonna be a topic. That is definitely gonna be
Yeah,
a
yeah.
but all right, so let's get to it. We are going to continue to talk about navigating marriage and navigating motherhood, and that is more than a title. But today we want to talk about making space for me because we find out last week that wearing that S on our chest can get exhausting, and from exhaustion comes guilt comes burnout. So we have to figure out, now that we have experienced those things, how to make space for me. I know a conversation last week, Lillian. My word is gonna be all over the place today. She
If you can't say a word, just wave your hand.
the major topic that took precedent was marriage. And we didn't talk a lot about motherhood, but I want to bring that in to fold right now. Now that we are adults, older than when we had my first, and I know your first, and thinking about where we are now, do you feel bringing children into the world is a selfish thought? Like I said, I knew I always wanted to be a mother, but especially nowadays, I think I'm so sorry, especially to Aaliyah, I'm so sorry I brought you into this crazy world. When you thought of it, or even as a thought for parents out there, is it selfish to bring children into this world, or do we just want to have children? I don't know. I don't know if I framed that question the way I really wanted to, but that can be a good topic to start on. What you think? Did I give you a buzz?
Honey, the sis is gonna be mad at me on this one. Because I'm gonna say this: it is absolutely selfish to have children. I absolutely think it is, but I don't think selfishness is necessarily a bad thing. If you think about what it means to actually bring a whole ass human into this world that will be attached to you for a couple decades, depending on you for its existence, for its survival, and for its foundation to then be able to take care of itself, yeah, it's very selfish. But we could also argue that, especially based on what society thinks now, it's also selfish to not want to have kids. And I think, yeah, I think they're both great. And I think they're both selfish. And I think that's fine because we've always seen selfishness as a very negative thing. But I think selfishness can be a positive thing. I think it just really depends on how you view it, the context, and how it's situated. I do think that it begs the question. So let me say this before I say that. I had a student a couple semesters ago who was in her 60s. And I loved Miss Latanya. If she ever listens to this, I love talking to Miss Latanya because Miss Latanya,
Hey, Miss
she would get
Latanya.
look, she would put us on the stories that she would give us some really good advice and real good conversation in the class. And I loved her. But I remember us talking about the same question, this idea, because I was watching something on YouTube maybe a couple months ago, and it was talking about how women who decide to not have children are selfish. And usually who's saying this is men telling women that they're selfish for not wanting to have children, because what about the legacy? And so we were having this conversation in class, and I remember Miss Latanya, and I can't remember how many siblings she had, but I'm pretty sure it was high single digits or low double digits, her and her sibling. And I remember her saying back in the day, parents used to have the kids because they needed help to work the farm. That's selfish as hell. I'm sorry. I think that's, we need help tending this land. So you know what we're going to do? Get the sheets. Let's hit it. Let's build our own farm. Like,
How else were they supposed to mend the farm?
I don't know. But the idea that I was born to be a farmhand is a little disconcerting for me.
But that's all
So
they had.
what?
That's all they had.
Do you
Was
hear how
children.
selfish that is? That's selfish. That's like me. Have you seen now these moms who have their
Nowadays,
baby?
it would be. Nowadays, it would be.
It was
I don't
selfish
think
back then
we.
too.
Okay.
I don't understand. So because it was back then, it's not selfish? You were literally born. You were not born because we love each other and we wanted an amalgamation of the best parts of us walking on this earth, our hearts to hold, to love, to have this representation of our union. I literally had you because I need help milking these cows. Mind you, you can't even milk the cows for at least 3 to 5 years on a good farm. We can't even do nothing really with you to help us until you at least start walking. But we're gonna go ahead and start having a tribe now because somebody got to tend to these mules. What?
I think back then that was the mentality. Now
That's
times have
selfish.
changed. Okay, but I don't think it's selfish in that sense, though. I
Make it make
understand.
sense for me.
Okay, so I understand. Back then, that is all they knew. They knew that they had to mend the farm because that was their livelihood, the way they eat. So who else was going to do it? I know probably it was a family thing, so that included uncles and aunts and all cousins or whatever. But that also means any child that come into this house, you have to be out there with everybody else because there was no schools for them to go to. So I think I understand that per se back then because I think that was the mentality back then. Nowadays, if people are saying, okay, we're only going to have a child because I want you to clean my yard and clean my house, and you are only coming in to do the work that I don't want to do now, then I think that's totally different because of the times. No?
What I heard you say is we got free from slavery, but we put our kids back into it. That's probably why a lot of us are in therapy now.
But the mentality back then was still slavery. They still
Yeah.
had an enslaved mentality back then.
Yeah. And our
Even if they
solution to
were
that
free.
was to give us free, and then we put our kids in servitude. Oh, but our kids not getting paid. Our kids don't really, not that slaves got paid. That's not what I meant. But there's
Yeah.
no maybe
No, but
immediate return on that
think
investment.
I think that was the mentality, and so that's what they did. And it's not like now where we know the psyche of it and we know
Oh yeah.
the effects of it. I don't think they knew that back then. That was just still they
It
didn't
was
have
just uncharted
experience.
waters. But
Yeah,
I think if we're going to talk about selfishness, we have to talk about it from that regard as well, because that was having children is selfish. And again, I don't necessarily think selfishness is a negative thing. It
yeah.
can be, but that's not the default setting to me anymore when I hear selfish. However, I don't think that's any less selfish than I just saw something the other day about a mother who they had a child, and their child was like having all these issues with their health, and their solution was to have a baby. who would then become like the donor
Yes,
for
yes,
this other child. I think that's
yes,
just as selfish as saying, I need somebody to help me tend these chickens. I really do, because then we're not even looking at love and nurturing. And someone said this the other day. Now, granted, it was in a whole different context, but it really stuck with me because I never heard anybody articulate it quite this way. But this idea that I had no choice in my birth, I had no choice in being here. I have no choice of who my parents are when I get here, my socioeconomic status, my community. I have no choice in those things. But I also am born into this system with expectations on my life. Even though I did not say, like, I'm sure the Father, the Son, and the Holy Ghost was in the room when the conception happened, but I wasn't. So I didn't really get to weigh in on what I thought should happen. But all of a
yeah.
sudden, there's this expectation that I have to do X, Y, Z, be a fruitful member of the community or society. I have to, and this idea that, oh, this is going to be controversial, but this idea that kids kind of owe parents gratitude for taking care of them is, it's a little wonky for me. So when I used to work at the dental school, that was the first time I actually got to work with like different students of different cultures, from Asia, from Africa, from India, like all different cultures. I met more Nigerians in the time that I worked at dental school in my whole life. Like, it was so much diversity, and I love that. But to hear some of the perspectives, to hear some of the students who, because dentistry was a legacy type industry, whereas if your mom did it or your dad, it was not typically
Mhm.
mom, it would typically be dad. But if my dad or my granddad did, it was the expectation that I'm supposed to do it too, to keep the legacy going. And so a lot of students would, now mind you, by the time they get to me, they were in their third year of dental school. So this is all through K through 12, undergrad, and now you're in graduate school, your third year in. And that's when a lot of people would voice regret. I really don't want to be doing this, but the expectation is that I have to do this. And I have to be a doctor because the expectation is, as soon as I get done, I then have to become the caretaker for my parents. I would have students that were taking out student loans and sending money home to different countries because the
Mhm.
expectation was, we got you to dental school, now you're taking care of us. So
Mhm.
to me, that's a selfish thing too, this expectation that I'm only going to raise you to a certain point and then you owe me for raising you, but I didn't ask you to have me. So I think that could be very selfish as well. I know I've seen a lot of videos on YouTube in particular about generationally where we would see that expectation of, you made it to America or you made it to this point, now you got to send this money home, and how
Mhm.
kids were out. Now I'm not doing that. Was my mama. My mama did that. I'm not doing that because I saw my mama sending y'all the money home. Y'all still ain't got a pot or a window. What are y'all doing with the money? That kind of thing. So I
Mhm.
think that's selfish too. And what do you think about that? Do you feel like after a certain point our children owe us?
In that specific example, I'm thinking of that's culture. That's a more cultural thing. So I understand that. But as far as me and my children, we absolutely had these children out of love. We wanted to raise these children into the best human beings, teach them from right or wrong, love them. We didn't get it right all the time, so we made some mistakes. So they learned some mistakes along the way. But the end goal is for them to be productive human beings in this world. And I don't think that I would expect them to, okay, I've done this for 19, 20, or 21 years, however long. So now you go make it big, and then I'm just going to wait until you take care of me. I don't think that's the expectation I have. I don't think that's the expectation Cedric has as well. Now, those who have raise and mold these boys into basketball players and make them believe that they can be the next Michael Jordan or the next LeBron James, even if they have done great and have gone through the whole process of getting into the league, whether that is football or whether that is basketball. I still don't think those parents say, okay, now that you're in the league, now you need to take care of me. I think that is gratitude that children choose to do to take care of their parents. As for me, I don't understand the mentality of okay, I've taken care of you. Now you need to take care of me. Because how do we know that little Johnny or little Craig or little Mary Jane going to do well? So what is that expectation for them to say, okay, I've done 21 years, so you take care of me, and they don't have, like you say, the pot or the window for
Yeah.
themselves. So
Yeah. But you would be
I don't
surprised the
understand.
number of parents, and I know you situate it more as like a cultural thing, but you would be surprised the number of parents right here locally who have that mentality, who just feel like, I done my time, now it's time for you to take care of me. I'm gonna sit back and let you do this. And I just be sitting there looking, you wonder why they only call you on Mother's Day? You wonder why? This is why. Because girl, I'm
Right.
telling you, it's thick, it's heavy. And for kids to have to carry that weight, I think it's horrible. Both my boys thought at one time, my little one still think he's gonna be a billionaire, but I remember when my older one was younger. Listen, they thought they was gonna be ballers, shot callers,
Yes.
brawlers, like all the things. And they'd be
Yes.
like, when I become, and my little one now, when I get to be a millionaire, mommy, I'm gonna buy you a mansion. I'm gonna do this. And I'm like, baby, you don't have to buy me a mansion. It's okay. I just want you to be okay. He was like, well, can I buy you a Gucci bag? I'm like, you don't have to. Like, that's a big jump between either I can get a mansion or a purse. That's
Right.
it.
Right.
But I really want to be, especially, and I think the blessing for me was that I got to hear students, and that, but not even from the point of I don't want to take care of my parents, but from the perspective of how much of a burden it put on those children to feel like, because I used
Oh,
to tell these,
shit,
I remember
stressful.
telling, girl, and I can remember telling these two, and it was a lot of boys, it was a few girls, but a lot of boys. I remember telling them, like, you don't have a check, like, you don't have it, you're not making money as a dentist yet. How are you sending home your student loan money for these people to live off of? That is so unrealistic. And then, like, which I understand in some countries it's just that bad. They're like, yeah, $1,000 here is $1,000 over there. It could do stuff. I do
Right.
understand that. But when I
Right.
tell you the burden that they carried, like, girl, it
They
would be
have.
to the point where when they would fail something or they didn't meet a requirement, they would be devastated because they're like, I
Yeah.
can't not make
Yeah.
it. I have to
Like,
make it.
yeah. Like
This burden on
they let the
me.
family down.
And I remember just thinking, and I would try to tell them, like, I don't know your parents and I don't know your culture, but I really want to just be optimistic and say, I don't think that's the intent. And they're like, no, that's the intent. But I used to try to like boost them up because, and I would come home and be very clear with my boys, you don't owe us for being your parents. That was a decision that we made. Look, informed decisions or not. Some of us planned those decisions. Some of us had happy mistakes, as what Bob Ross used to say, happy accident.
Yeah, I hope that's not what we've given off to our children, because it's definitely not the intent at all.
Yeah.
I hope that we have and will continue to steer them in whatever path they choose to go into. But I hope that the intent is not giving off that, okay, now I need you to go do what you need to do so you can take care, especially now, because now Cedric is in a long-term care facility. But I would not want the boys to think, gosh, I gotta now do what I need to do to make it big so I can make sure my dad's. I
Mm.
believe that they would do that, I think, because they're just good people and great kids. But I do hope that it is not something that they would
They think
expect
you expect. Yeah.
us to do. And but wow, again, so I will be the one to say that I am naive about, because I didn't know that was a thing other than cultural. I understand cultural because everybody tries to work, especially for those lower income countries where the children do go to the United States, because this is the United States. I mean, they're gonna make it big but send money back. But that's
This is
wild.
pre-47. Let's say pre-47 America.
But that's wild to take out
Yeah.
student loans, because now we know
Student
what student loans
loans.
are
Yes.
and how they are,
Yes.
biting us all in the butt.
Yes.
Just imagine what that dollar sign
Girl.
them, because they're trying
And
to take care of family. Wow.
yeah.
Wow.
So let me
Wow.
ask you the opposite question, right? Because, it's so funny we're talking about this because this is so relevant to things that are happening in my academic life right now. But this idea now, I don't know if you've heard of the 4B movement. I'm going to look it up so I can tell you exactly what the B's and stuff stand for. But this idea that women are just reclaiming our bodies and our consent. And so it started in South Korea, and it was this the 4B, and each B word refers to something that has something to do with this idea of getting married and procreating. So it's called 4B, or the 4-No movement. And basically it's about we're choosing not to date men, not to marry men, not to have sex with men, or to have children with men. Because in a lot of cultures, it's this expectation that you're nothing until you get married, and you're expected to marry at all costs, and then you're expected to procreate and have children. And so a lot of women are using this as a moment to just reclaim their choices back and reclaim their bodies back, and saying, no, I'm choosing to not have children, or I'm choosing to not get into a relationship. I just want to live my life on my terms. And it started in South Korea, but what we're actually seeing is in a couple of other countries where this is actually happening in real time, where there are now significant drops in birth rates. And even so much so that I think it was South Korea that I think it was like last year, they had like whole schools that didn't have like first grade classes or kindergarten classes, because women are deciding not to have kids. And so there's a very obvious segment of kids missing because women are choosing, they're choosing. And so how do you feel about that? How do you feel about this idea that, because for a while, as you said, first comes love, then comes marriage, right? Then comes the baby carriage. Well, a lot of women are saying, yeah, you can miss me with that. That was cute for you. Look, that's cute. I love that for you. But they're deciding they don't want to do that. So what do you think about this new movement towards empowerment to say, motherhood isn't for me. I don't want to be a mother. I don't want to have kids.
And I applaud them, because I would much rather them not have children, because that's what they choose to, than be forced to have children and that child becomes abused, become neglected for whatever reason. And this is what I say. My children love to have aunties, right? We need aunties in this world, right? What are the different types of aunties? We got the rich auntie. we got the
And then we have
the
the merged one, which is the I ain't really that rich auntie, but I cuss a little bit, but my heart is pure, which is me. That's the auntie energy.
you know what? So we need just as many aunties in the world as we do
Mm-hmm.
good mothers in the world.
Yeah.
I would much rather them live their life the way they want to, instead of having society tell them that they need to have children. And again, that is being unselfish to them. Is that the right way? Yeah. So they're being unselfish to them. Unselfish.
I think you could argue it both ways. Maybe they're thinking I'm not trying to be selfish, but I also think that's selfish as well. But again, I don't think that's a bad thing. I think it is
Yeah.
wonderful if you
No,
have the
no, no.
wherewithal. I think
Yeah,
that's what I'm saying. I think it's both terms. I think it's
yeah,
both, because depending on your position, it could be both. But I think
yeah.
it's so wonderful to have the wherewithal to be able to say, you know
To
what,
know that,
this
yes,
isn't just for it isn't for, because you know what, me
it's
and my
not for
brother were
me.
having this conversation. It never pisses me off, this double standard. No one ever goes to a newly married man and goes, so when are you guys going to have kids? It's always
Wow.
the mom. So when are you guys going to have, oh my God, you just got married. That's great. Congratulations. How long have you been
Yeah,
married? So when are y'all going to have kids? It just,
right.
and it's,
Yeah,
can we just enjoy this marriage first? Can we figure out our finances first? Can we buy a house first? Like all these things that need to be considered before you have kids. But for so long, the expectation was first comes love, then comes marriage, then comes baby.
yeah,
And this idea that, look, I'm reclaiming my time, I'm reclaiming my voice, I'm reclaiming my choice. And I think that
yeah,
is a wonderful thing, because now what we have empirical evidence of, brethren, is a whole generation of kids who did not get the love, who did
yeah,
not get the nurturing, who have been
right.
traumatized, who were neglected. And now, if you notice now, a very big thing on social media now is people who are cutting off their parents because they are tired of the trauma. They are getting off that merry-go-round of trauma and abuse and non-love. And they always tell people the best thing about adulthood is you get to choose your family. And so people
Yeah,
are just making different decisions for what family looks like for them. And you have a
yeah,
whole segment of people who are like, my kids won't talk to me. And it's like, yeah, we can tell you why. If you talk long enough, we'll be able to tell you what happened. So I love
yeah,
that people are saying, you know what, that doesn't signify success or
yeah,
adulthood to me. I'm going to
yeah.
define that on my own terms.
Yeah. And those couples who choose not to have it because they just want to travel, they just don't want the burden of
Yeah,
children. And I hate to use the word burden, but they just
it
want
is
to live.
a burden.
Yeah,
It's a
yeah,
burden. Sometimes
yeah,
burdens are good. Sometimes
yeah,
burdens are bad.
yeah. Yeah, but I applaud them. I do. That topic can also have a play for those who are having a hard time having kids. When are you having kids? You don't know that I've had 12 miscarriages. You
Uh,
don't know that I am going through IVF, trying to get pregnant. And here you are, along with society tells me my clock is ticking. I should have had a
right.
child time ago. But you don't know that I so Aaliyah is our rainbow baby. So I was pregnant before Leah, maybe about a year or so ago, and had a miscarriage.
A year or so ago.
A year, I'm sorry, before having Aaliyah. Sorry. Look, let's wind that back.
Somebody
Honey,
holding secret.
honey, look, we're snipped. Look, both snipped.
It's called nip tuck, nip tuck.
Spayed and neutered. Have been for quite some time. Sorry, babe.
Look, that needs to be a whole topic, because how in the
Yeah.
heck did you talk a black man into getting the snip? Listen.
I had the kids, so you gonna do something to contribute to not having no more.
Listen. If there are certain things that you feel we gonna keep doing, there are certain things I need you to do.
Oh, but yeah, a year before Leah was born, I was pregnant and had a miscarriage. But it was okay. So when you gonna have another baby? And I was like, can I get over the trauma? I mean, I knew
And
that
that
we
is hella traumatic.
listen. Look, and that definitely needs to be a topic because
Yes.
trauma and just having children. So that
Period.
natural way, that C-section, honey, that's trauma. But yeah, miscarrying a baby is traumatic, and especially the different ways. And look, I thank God every day that I did not have a miscarriage now, because of all the stuff with women's health and women's issues, and what they've taken away and all this other stuff, because I did not have the option to have a DNC. I had to have it naturally. They sent me home with some medicine to miscarry naturally. And I don't think miscarriage and natural should be in the same sentence in any medical doctor's mouth. When I tell you those 7 days of pure hell, and I won't cuss often, but pure hell
Oh my
that
word,
me and my body went through.
girl.
We sent our children away to, I think it was my sister's house, my mom's house, parents' house, and 7 days we had to allow it to pass naturally. So coming from the trauma of that, and then having somebody say, oh, so when are you having kids, or when are you going to have that next baby, you got to get right back in the sack. Can I just get through, just get past what I just went through? It's just really it was just 3 months ago.
Girl, I feel like we need an episode on well-meaning but unsolicited advice from old people, because what the hell?
And it wasn't even old people. That wasn't even old people. That was like, okay, so honey, it's time to get that.
That's all right, girl. If that first shoe down 6 feet, what are we doing?
Those boys need another sibling. They're good.
And while you talk about trauma, and I have never had a miscarriage, but I've had some situations. But talking about trauma, my last delivery was, you take for granted that everything is going to go right. And that everything is going to be perfect. And I definitely took it for granted, because even though my boys are 11 years apart, and I just remember, like, everything was new, but I'm like, oh, I've done this before. I got it. I know what to do. I'm not going to make those mistakes I did last time. I'm packing a different type of bag to go to the hospital, because I don't need all that stuff this time. I just need my house dress,
Child.
a nursing bra, listen, and one outfit for him to take pictures in. I'm fine. Look, because I know my mama gonna come here and take all the diapers off y'all parts, so I don't have to worry about bringing a bag big enough for that. She's on that. But girl, trauma from
honey, look, that's an extra bag in itself, honey, because yes, I helped myself.
I need more diapers. Look, I need more diapers. And Desitin. and Vaseline.
Your
And
blankets.
what else over there? Yeah, I need some of that. I need some more. I'm finna use that.
Oh,
Yeah, I need some more of that too. But girl, the trauma from everything not going the way we planned it to go. And one day we'll have to go there. Maybe not today, but one day we'll talk about that. But girl, our delivery was traumatic AF, and nothing went the way that it was planned. And we ended up with a NICU baby that we were not prepared for at all.
yeah.
When I say at all, I knew in my mind that because my question to my doctor was, how long can I stay? Because I was going to milk that room service and that helped with that baby for as long as I could. That was my mindset going in because I knew what to expect. And when we had the complications and we ended up with a NICU baby, you talking about traumatic, and it changed. Like I was fully prepared not to make the mistakes in motherhood that I made with my first one because I didn't know.
Yeah.
But having that trauma of a baby being so sick and almost dying changed the plans tremendously. And so that made me even more over clingy, made me a little bit more hyper aware about certain things. So it definitely changed the type of mother that I was because I was on the path. I knew what to do this time.
Yeah.
I was like, I know the mistakes I made before. I can correct this. I know not to do this. I know not to do that. But honey, when you are in a situation where they tell you cannot touch your baby, because it's too much stimulation for them and they can't handle it. You talk about a tailspin, all that to say there's different types of traumas that come in motherhood and they shape how you mother. And I know me and my husband both, we were so clingy with that younger one because of all the trauma that we went through and he went through and just that uncertainty. So we were just like, no, he got to sleep right here. You breathing? Like it was that kind of thing. And so that changed me as a mother too. But you don't think about that, and people don't really talk about that. You just get the good stories. There's all different types of traumas that go into motherhood. I have a friend who's had too many miscarriages to count. I've had a friend who's been on IVF for as long as I've known her and still doesn't have any kids. There's so many facets to motherhood. I just found out this weekend when we were at my grandma's party, one of my younger cousins just got married. And when I tell you, I was so glad nobody in my family opened their mouth to be like, so when y'all gonna have a baby? Because I was gonna be like, shut up. Because that's typically what people do. And I was so glad that we were just able to celebrate the fact that there was new love and they had gotten married. And oh my gosh, you're such an adult now, that kind of thing. And I was like, if somebody set their mouth to say it, I'm going to. But nobody did. And I was like, maybe we're progressing. Maybe we understand now. It doesn't always have to be that. Because you're right. We do take for granted that, we just assume these women can even have kids. And we're just asking questions, getting all in their business about when they're going to hit the sheets when we need to mind our business.
Okay, so that
Sorry, we went off the script.
Look, that was the first thing I said. We may go off the script, honey, because this was something that we need to talk about. Because I wanted to include definitely motherhood, but include all kinds of motherhood. So motherhood can be natural, but that it can also mean adoption. It can mean fostering. I worked at these for 5 years, so I know that system. I was the one who certified foster parents and foster moms and foster homes. So I certified them. And so I went into the homes to make sure they had the right kind of homes to bring in these children to be their foster children or foster kids. So I know that space greatly. I mean, of course, things have definitely changed, but that's still a mom. That's still parenting. Those who are just aunts who choose to say, hey, bring over Ray J and little Susie to my house for a couple of days, and Auntie will have them. I'll take them out, feed them, and then I'll be able to send them back because that's what I choose to do. So
I tell you.
So it's
so
even
different.
mothers who are taking care of their grandchildren.
Surrogate.
Yes.
Surrogates.
Yes. It's so many. It's to applaud all of you. Go ahead.
Yeah. I was gonna say, and one of my really good friends, she was a mother that never gave birth. She actually just inherited a child when she got married, and that was her child. And she was more mother than the actual mother because daddy had custody. It's all kinds of things. And when I tell you, and I'm gonna tell you this because I don't tell my brother this because my brother is the kind of person, if I told him this, he would feel bad about it. So I can't tell him this. But when I tell you one of the things on my bucket list. When I tell you, I cannot wait for him to birth, or not him birth, but
No, not him. Not him.
you know what I mean. I cannot wait for him to bless my life. I need a roly-poly, fat neck, fat leg, chunky cheeked niece and or nephew to ruin, let me tell you, to ruin and send home. When I
Yes,
tell
yes.
you, that is what, when I tell you, next to not ever having to work again, that is one of the heavy desires of my heart. Because, and it's the one thing I have no control over. Like, it's the one
Right,
thing I
right.
can't help him with it. I ain't got no input on it. But when I tell you my auntie energy,
Yes, I love being
whenever my brother decides to have kids, y'all ain't gonna be able to stand me.
right
Y'all are not gonna be able to stand me. Have you seen
anymore.
those videos anymore? Look, even worse. Okay, have y'all seen those videos where it was one I saw the other day where they were like in the store and the little girl was asking for something and the mom and dad was like, no, and honey, auntie walked by and put them glasses on and was like, yes. And the little girl was like, that's gonna be me. Your
Yeah.
daddy said you can't have what? Check your cash app. But by then it'll be check your computer chip. Auntie done already sent. It's
By then,
by then it's gonna be holograms and computer
hello.
chips. I'm gonna be like, I'm beaming it to you now, Quay Quay.
I love being an auntie. I do. I
Oh,
do. My niece came after. All right, so it's CJ, Bryce, and then Brianna, and then Aaliyah. So Brianna is like right there in the middle, but she was the first girl, so she would look. She trained me to know how to parent Aaliyah, because
oh,
good
I love
God
that.
Almighty, girls. That's all I got, just girls. But I love being an auntie. And again, this world needs aunties just
They
as much as
do.
we need mothers. So
They do.
motherhood will look very different for
Everybody.
everyone. It's
Yeah.
not going to be the same, but it
Oh,
still is loving a child, hoping and praying that they become the best human beings possible in this world. They're going to make mistakes, so we're there to help navigate them through those processes. And then some not. They sometimes they're going to have to learn on their own what
yeah.
those mistakes are, because I heard Michelle Obama say, I love her new podcast with her brother, but she was saying when she was growing up, kindergarten, her mama put alarm clock in their room and said, okay, now you are kindergartner now, so it's time for you to wake yourself up. It's time for you to get your stuff up, get ready for school. And I'm like, wait, what? So I'm still waking my child up. I'm kind of late.
Look, I'm still waiting on somebody to wake me up.
But again, parenting is different. Parenting looks different for
Yeah.
everybody.
And you know what? And I'm
Right,
sorry, I don't
right
want to
or
right or
wrong. Go ahead.
wrong. And I don't want to cut you off, but I would be remiss if I didn't say this because I want to also talk about another side of this. So my first child, I would venture to say, and these are not conversations I haven't had with my mom, so I feel okay saying this. My first child, I could say I didn't have him, quote unquote, the right way because I wasn't married. I was 20 years old. I ain't know nothing about nothing, from nothing, on nothing. But also this idea that I can look back now and say, at the time when I was going through it, I didn't understand it. But I look back now and see that having a child saved my life. I could see that I was heading, first of all, independent would have messed me up. Because as y'all know, my mama kept her whole stockinged foot on my neck coming up. And I cannot tell you, on my to-do list was move out and turn up. Okay? Because I was going to make up for lost time. And I knew that. I was planning that. And by the time I got to the point when I was moving out, I had a baby on board. I was pregnant. And so it went from my girl, I had my apartment set up, had everything set up. And when I got ready to move, I ended up moving from my parents' house in with my older son's dad, pregnant with him. And that was just not the plan, but that's just what ended up happening. And when I tell you that was the best thing that could have ever happened to me because it made me who I am today. I don't think I was like a very quote unquote irresponsible person, but having him grew me up very quickly, and it showed me like I have to have a plan. I have to start advocating. It helped me find my voice. It helped me develop a level of confidence because I realized I had to fight for not just me. Like I didn't care. You could dog me out, but you can't dog him out, right? So I had to learn how to walk in my voice, advocacy, and speaking up, and having a plan, and figuring out what I was going to do with my life. So the partying that I thought I was going to do, the mistakes that I was going to make, went away, and he truly saved me. And I wanted to just say that because sometimes the blessing is the baby. A lot of times we think of the baby, oh my God, don't you end up with no baby. But sometimes the baby is the blessing. And I know he was in my life because let me tell y'all, sis was getting ready. When I tell you turn down for what? I was getting ready, as evidenced by the fact that I had him in my belly when I got ready to go, because the closer I got to leaving, I started turning up. But I would be remiss if I didn't say that, because like you said, motherhood looks different for everyone and it impacts you in a different way. Some of us have kids and it's traumatic because it's not what we dreamed at all. Some of us have babies and we are rejoiced because it's not what we dreamed at all. For me, it was a hella of a ride. But looking back now, I know he saved my life. And I can honestly say I would not be who I am today if I did not have him when I did, because I probably would have been somewhere buried in my grave at this point, because I would have had nothing holding the reins at that point.
Wow.
And I'm so glad that he came. Maybe not the way he did, but he really did. And I try to make sure that I tell him that, because he was the thing that motivated me to go back to school. It was hard. It was rough. I didn't have no help. Mama was through with me. Let me just say that Mama was not helping me. Like Mama was like, you ain't do it the way I want you to do it, then I'm not talking to you no more. And I was like, what? You really not talking to me for okay? I didn't have help. I just had to figure it out on my own. Girl, look, I was thinking about it this weekend because we were celebrating my grandma, and I had to call my grandma and tell my grandma. I had to tell on my mama, and I don't know what my grandmama said to her. But baby, she got her straight, because I was like, she mean to me, grandma. And she was mad at me, honey, because how dare I upset her vision for my life. And so she didn't help me. And so I didn't have support. I did not have help. I was pillar to post with whoever would help me. And again, it was hard. And I'm not trying to glorify what I did, but I look back now and I know he saved my life, because when I tell you I was headed in a direction I really didn't need to be in. So that I wanted to say that too. Just sometimes motherhood is always scary. It's always overwhelming, but it doesn't have to be bad. Sometimes the baby is the blessing and you never know. I remember my cousin, especially when I found out his daddy was a knucklehead child. I remember my cousin saying something was a knucklehead.
Oh, okay.
It's the nicest word I have right now.
I
But no, it is what it is. But I remember my cousin saying sometimes two people come together just for this person to be here. You never know how things play out. Whatever your situation is, however you end up at motherhood, it doesn't necessarily have to be a bad thing. I know sometimes we just defaultly think it's going to be a good thing, and we have to understand it's not a good experience for every woman or every parent. Sometimes it is traumatic. Sometimes it is a shock. Things don't go as you plan. There are some things you just can't plan for. So you have to understand both sides, but it can also be such a wonderful thing. It is a life-changing thing most times, but I just want to say that sometimes the baby is the blessing. That's all I was trying to say.
Yeah. And I know you know this well, is step parenting. Step parenting also can have its joys and can definitely have its lows as well. That's bringing in somebody else's child into your home and loving them, but also having to figure out those boundaries. In talking about the joys with the traumas, we have, as women, been able to navigate those waters through the trauma, through the ups, through the downs, through having the children in ways that we may not have planned, but they're here. So what do we do? In the marriage, there may be some trials, there may be some tribulations, there may be more traumas, more devastation that may happen. And in the midst of all of that, we still have to think about, how do we make space for love, for joy, for me? And that's the question, because in the conversations that we've had, We have gone through a lot. We've gone through a lot. We've gone through a lot. And so, who are we outside of all of this? How do we make that connection to who we are, getting back to who we are? I know that we will never probably get back to who we are pre children, pre marriage, pre dating. I know that we'll probably never get back to that, but now that this is a part of who we are, again, my husband is in a long term facility, care facility. Okay, so my oldest is away at school. My middle child is working and going to school. And then my teenage daughter is here and we're navigating teenagedom. And that's challenging within itself. But how do I take care or step aside and still figure out who I am in the midst of all of this? And that's the question that I ask on a daily basis, but it's one that I want to put out there as well. How do we make space to love, to have some joy for us outside of all of this? What do you think?
That's hard because I think first, in order for us to do that, we have to know who we are in all those spaces, right? Who is Kelly? Who is Lillian? Period. But then who is Kelly as a mom? Who is Kelly as a wife? Who is Lillian as a mom? Who is Lillian as a wife? And that's where therapy is good to help, because you have to know who you are and be self-aware in order to rediscover you. You have to know who you are and find what that looks like. And
Rediscovering. Woo!
listen, and I'm gonna say this: marriage made me lose myself, but not in a bad way. But I still got lost because I was so used to. I was a single parent for 11 years, and I was the head of household. I was the mother. Look, I'm the mama. I'm the daddy. I'm the. Or I had to do all the things. I had to wear all the hats. And then here comes this man who I love, who was a good man, but I had to figure out, where does that leave me now? Because now I don't need to occupy all those spaces, because now there's someone else who can occupy those spaces too. And so I had to figure out, what spaces do I occupy? And what spaces does he occupy? And what does that look like for us? And I will never forget having a literal, who is this person moment, right? Because my husband, listen, he loved me so good and redefined what love and acceptance looked like to me, that I just went off the rails. Like, and I never get, girl, one day we used to go to Lowe's every weekend. Every weekend. That was our thing. We went to Lowe's
Right.
because we had just bought it. We had just got this house. We were trying to get all the stuff done. That was our date. Like, we go to Lowe's, and there was a little Chinese restaurant right next to Lowe's. We would go in there with the baby. They knew us. We won our same booth. That was us. And I'll never forget, he would always say, "Can you skip out of razzle dazzle? We just going to Lowe's. You ain't got to do all that." Because I was that person. I was, listen. And so over time, I stopped doing anything. And he just loved me and accepted me however I was. And girl, one day I messed around and walked past the mirror and looked, and I was just like, "Who is that?" Girl, I looked like a wildebeest one day, and I lost myself in a good way because he loved me unconditionally, and I never had that. So I didn't have to do the razzle dazzle all the, like, I never had to do it, but I just felt like I needed to do it. And he was just like, "You don't have to do all that. You don't have to do all that." I used to ask him, like, "How do you like my hair?" And he was just like, "Pull it back in a bun, just away from your face so I can see your face." That's it. Yeah, that's it. But so I just was like, "Well, I ain't got to do nothing then. Let me just pull it back in a ponytail and hit the streets." And girl, I never forget when I looked in the mirror and I started looking at him, and I was like, "Why you got me out here looking like this?" And he was like, "You're beautiful. You look fine." I was like, "That's not who, no, I have a picture of who I'm supposed to look like. That's not me. Who is that?" Like, girl, I had went hunt, happy weight. Let me tell you, happy weight, happy oblivion. My hair was sticking. My girl, I was, and he was just up here, "This is my wife. I love my wife." And I was just like, "I love you loving me like this, but this is not me." And so I
Yeah.
had to go back and find what make me feel like me again. And it was just put a little bit more razzle dazzle in it. And I just had to, and we had to talk about it. I'm just the razzle dazzle person. So it's just certain things that I needed to do to
Yeah.
make me feel like myself. And it wasn't like overly high maintenance type things, but it was just little things that I needed to do that he was just like, "You don't have to do all that." And so it gave me permission to not do these things And so that was part of my rediscovering who I was, just saying, I know me, and I know she would not appreciate me letting her go out looking like this, even though you love her a long time, and I appreciate that. Sis need to do I ain't like, it's not full battle rattle, but can we just, this a step up from this? And so that was part of my rediscovering me, to say, this is what true unconditional love feels like. And now that I have that, okay, that's great. I still need to I had to go back to being comfortable with me, because girl, I didn't even realize how bad I looked. And then when I started looking back at all these pictures, I was like, oh my gosh, were you ever embarrassed to tell people I was your wife? Because I'm embarrassed. But he just taught me, he redefined love for me. And so to me, that I don't want to say I wasn't practicing self-care, but not in the way that I should have been, because he just made me feel so loved and accepted that, girl, I'm talking about like weight was just waiting. Hair, toe up. I'm not saying people have to wear makeup, but it's just certain things that I like to do. I wasn't doing none of that, like none of that. And I was just going to work like looking like Wanda. But girl, so that was part of my rediscovery, just understanding that, coming back to me and finding who I was. And there was a happy middle, because it wasn't like, I'm not going to be in formal dresses and tiaras. No, but there was a step up from this weekend warrior vibe that I had going on. So that was part of my rediscovery too. But also in rediscovering yourself, again, what is my identity and what identities am I comfortable with? Because again, Kelly is a whole person, irrespective of her kids. A lot of us build our identities around motherhood and around wifehood, but we are whole ass people outside of that too. And so you got to figure out, do I want to be Kelly or Lillian irrespective of being a mother, or is my identity wrapped up in motherhood? Do I want these things to be exclusive? Can two things be true at the same time? So I think you really have to understand, before the titles, before these things happened, there was Kelly, there was Lillian. Do I want to go back to that person? Is there a happy middle where I'm maybe not going all the way back, but I'm not negating this new part of me? So I think all of that goes into your self-awareness.
Rediscovering for me did not take place until maybe a good year ago, because I was the one that was wrapped up in motherhood and wife. And that was even before the diagnosis. So when the diagnosis came, I definitely got lost in everything. I made sure that I was that good mom. I made sure that I was that good wife. And again, I'm going back to what I saw, because if I think about it, my mom probably would say that she got lost in it as well. She was a wife, she was a mom, but that other title was First Lady. And the type of preacher and the type of pastor that my dad was, he was a big deal. He really was. And so the title was something that she carried it well, but she carried it as only she would know how to do. But I would venture to say right now that she got lost in that. But that was my model. That was my example. Mm-hmm. And so that's what I knew. I knew how to be a wife. I knew how to be a mother, because she was wonderful in both of those things. So that is what I knew I had to do. I was CJ and Bryce's mom, and I had to make sure I was there at all school functions. I was there as much as I possibly could outside of working, because of course I still needed to work, but I was also Cedric's wife and I had to do that. So I lost myself pretty early on and remained that way, because I had wanted this for so long. So I just knew what I had to do. So I did it. And when the diagnosis came, I had to kind of shift back from being not so much hands-on mom, because I still did that, more because I didn't want them to be neglected. Now they're seeing their dad sick, and now they're seeing their dad go through all these changes and all that. So I wanted to definitely make sure, but there was some things that I just had to focus more so on, Cedric, to make sure this was taken care of, if this was taken care of. And then as CJ left to go off to school, and I didn't have to too much worry about him. Bryce at that time had gone off to school, and then it was just Aaliyah. And so I thought that I was still trying to manage Aaliyah and do okay with being a mom, but still Cedric was getting worse and declining in his health, and I had to figure out what to do at this point. And Kelly never came into the picture. What does Kelly want to do? Kelly still had dreams. Kelly still had goals. Kelly still wanted to do something because, and the thing that scared me, I used to be in these Parkinson's caregivers Facebook groups. And when I tell you, those stories used to scare me. Those were the doom and the gloom, and your life is lost. Your life is gone once your husband is diagnosed with Parkinson's, and you will never have a life again because you will have to focus all your time on. And I was like, I'm not going to do that. And I found myself doing that. Everything that it said that scared me, I was like, I'm not going to do that. I can't. I need my life. I was doing it. And the more and more I fell deep into this dark hole, and I was just no good to nobody. And I remember after the pandemic, so 2020, and probably a couple of years after that, I just remember just being into this deep hole. I was numb. I believe I was the Walking Dead. And I don't know if the Walking Dead was out at that time, but I was the Walking Dead because I was just going through the motions. I thought I was doing my best for Leah. At that time, Bryce came back home and started going to school here locally. And I was like, okay, I got somebody that can at least help me with that. And it just became bad. His health declined. And that is when I had to make a very hard decision of putting him into this long-term care facility because at that point, me and Bryce just could not. We tried as long as we possibly could. We had a hurricane here, and after the hurricane, I don't know what happened, but it took Cedric out. He went to the hospital for 20 days and then was transferred into a long-term care facility. He's been there since. And so after I got over the guilt of making the decision to put him in there, after I got over the guilt that I just could not take care of my husband, after I got over the guilt of saying, I just can't do this anymore, it was not until then I found Kelly again. My business took off. I did more into my business. I researched more of what I wanted to do in my business. So I became a certified AI consultant. I learned this and I learned that. And this was the most I just felt like a human being in the 8 years of him being diagnosed. I felt like Kelly. I could feel again because, again, I was numb. I was literally walking dead. And that was just in November of last year, right? January, I was 2 months in and I was like, okay, I can breathe. I didn't want nobody in my house. I didn't want my family in my house. Just call me. I'll talk to you on the phone. No, don't come over here. Nope. Nope. I didn't cook. I had stopped cooking. We was eating out every day. You talk about weight, honey. Weight was, woo! I think I was the heaviest I had been in my whole life because I definitely neglected my health. Was diagnosed with, lost you, diagnosed with diabetes. And so I didn't know what to do. And you hear those stories of sometimes caregivers are the first to die because they give of themselves and neglect who they are and neglect their health. And I thought about all that. And so when I finally went to the doctor and they said, Kelly, honey, come on, you don't have to figure it out. I had gone through 3 therapists because trying to find therapists is like trying to find a man, right? Honey, you got to date them therapists, honey. Look, that's not.
It is a relationship. It is a relationship.
And look, I have a therapy background, so I know what I'm looking for. And I was like, yeah, you're not it. Nope, I had gone through 3. It was horrible. Oh, it was horrible. And it was probably me. But yes, I had trying to get myself together, talk to somebody because I knew I needed that. I knew I was depressed and I knew I was just overwhelmed. I was everything that I should not have been. And Kelly was nowhere to be found. I went to that doctor and she said, okay, Kelly, you're going to have to do something really quickly. What do you need to do? And I was like, can you put me on that Manjaro?
Listen. The streets are talking. Look, the streets are talking.
Listen. was like, I got to get this weight off. If I could just get this weight off, because I knew I didn't have the energy to do something. I could not walk. I had no energy to walk. My daddy, just go and walk around the block. People say, take time for yourself. Just walk around the block. That I don't have no energy to do that.
Girl, I don't even know this Kelly, because the Kelly that I knew was like, can you bring some shoes so we can go walking? And I was like,
yeah, that was definitely before. Definitely before.
Girl, I was like, walk where? Why? What happened?
I had no energy. By that time, I was like 3 months in Manjaro, honey. My energy was here. And I was, honey, listen, y'all can say what you want about Manjaro. Look, I'm not paid to talk about this, but I'm gonna tell you what, honey, 45 pounds down.
And no walking. I'm just kidding.
No walking.
I'm sorry. Okay. That was not the point, but go ahead. That's not what we're rejoicing in.
But that reconnecting of myself, because I got lost in my marriage. I got lost in motherhood. I got lost in life.
Yeah.
That reconnecting and finding, I have not laughed in 8 years, it seems. And I laugh all the time, smiling, just a little bit of joy. It's not as much joy as I want, but it's the most joy that I have had in so long. And we're just in March. And I'm telling you, all of this 8 years. 8 years. And again, and I hate to say that the most pivotal moment was when I had to release my husband. And I hate to say that because that sounds so bad.
It doesn't.
But that was the hardest decision that I had to make. That was the hardest, because me and Cedric was inseparable. We were joined at the hip. Wasn't too often that we would go somewhere without each other. Me and my sister went to South Africa for I think a week, and I was all right. He was about to go crazy, right? I think he went to spend the week with his parents in Greenville one week, and he was like, okay, can Friday come quick enough? Again, we was just joined in the hip, and even though it's good to be away from your spouse, we did it from time to time, but it was not something that we did often, right? And so when we did it, it was okay. When it's time, I'm gonna get back to that kind of thing. It was not until I had to release my husband that I was able to find who Kelly was. And gosh, it sounds so bad coming out, but it's the truth. It is the truth.
It really doesn't sound bad. And see, I can remember. I understand what you mean, but I want you to people. If people know, they know, and I know that was hard for you, and I remember you struggling with that. But when I tell you it, I think it was just the guilt of, but I shouldn't feel like that, or I shouldn't say that.
Yeah.
But like you said, it just was what it was, and it didn't. It's not like that was the end of the marriage or the relationship. So I'm so glad you gave yourself that grace and that mercy, because when I tell you, you are a different person. You are, but you are a different person. And it's a lightness. And what I don't want to happen to you, because what I think is funny now is we see a generation of our aunts, of our mothers, who didn't find who they were. And now they're in their 70s and their 80s. And this is why I jokingly say, this is why your auntie on TikTok at 80 years old showing us her Megan knees, because she just found out who she was. She's in that place where she's still trying to figure those things out. And she's trying all the things in front of a camera. And that's not, I'm glad they're eventually find themselves, but that's not the way I would ideally want that to happen. So I'm so glad that you released that guilt. And I know it was a struggle for you, sis. I can't even begin to understand or imagine what you're going through, but just the part of it that I saw, I know it was hard for you, but I'm glad that you allowed yourself to let go of a lot of things so you could get back to you.
That grace, that giving grace to self is...
But as you said, that's something we saw. We didn't see our parents giving themselves grace or mercy. And so we didn't know how to give it to ourselves. And it's hard. But we are also the same people who will give it to everybody else. And it's like, why are we struggle to give it to ourselves?
Everybody
We wouldn't advise our kids to do this.
Ah.
But here we are doing it to ourselves. So I'm so glad that you were able to
Well,
get back to you.
and that's still a good point, because and I know we talked about it before, is what are we teaching our children, right? And so what am I teaching Aaliyah? What am I teaching CJ and Bryce the way I was? And so I always think about that. How will they be next 4, 5, 10, 15, 20 years based off of what they saw from their mom and dad? And I don't know. I don't know what that would look like. I don't know what they would get from us. And I don't know. I don't know if I should worry about that. I don't know if we've been great examples. Do you think about that at times?
It's funny you say that. A couple months ago, and I will say I think I'm a better parent because I'm a teacher. Because stuff that is said in the classroom, I'd be like, noted. I'm gonna go home and talk about that. I'm gonna make sure I check that.
Let's just say, how many want to be a part of Dr. Leo's classes? Because I promise you reference her classes every episode, and
Listen,
I'm sure that she's going to reference them. So how many of us really want to be a part of
girl,
Dr. And she has invited me so many times. I was like, man, I don't want to be in there. But how many of us want to really be in these classes?
baby, my classes
And you tell me they are off the chain.
off the rails. Because when I tell you I love it, I be here for some shenanigans. I'm here for the dialect, the discord. I'm here for it. Yes, I love it.
But they have definitely given you material for our podcast.
Yes,
So
they have. And for my parenting, because
yes.
let me look at the world. You'll be surprised what your kids, what your nieces, what your nephews, what your neighbors, what your siblings will come to class and share. And so I take those things and I be like, noted. Okay, go home and talk about that. Noted. Don't act like this when this thing happens. This is what I learned so much from them that I have put into my parenting. And so because of that, a couple of months ago, I did something that was very hard for me to do because it required me being vulnerable. It required me being silent, and it required me to be almost submissive in a way that was uncomfortable to me. Not that submission is, but in a particular way. And so what I did, based off of conversations that were happening in my classes and things that were happening in social media that was coming up that I was incorporating to my classes, I went to my older son. And the only reason why I've only done this with my older son is because I don't know if my younger son would understand this yet. But I went to my older son and I said, I need to know if I'm a toxic parent.
Mm.
And I just waited and I just had to sit and wait. And we had this conversation. And I was at a point where I was like, whatever he tells me, I will accept, I will hear, and I will just adjust going forward. And so I think I was saying that to say, ask your children. And a lot of times we just don't ask our kids because we are afraid of the answers or we're afraid of the position that puts us in. But it was a humbling moment for me. And I remember him, the first thing, and when I said that, he got quiet for a minute and I was like, oh, suck it now. I didn't know what he was going to say. And I remember he was like, define what you mean by toxic. What does that mean? What do you mean? And so I was like, okay, fair. And so I explained to him what it meant and all the things. And he was like, oh, okay. And his response to me was like, you are not toxic, but you were not perfect. And I was okay with that.
Yeah.
I was okay with that.
Yeah.
And it ended up with him saying, which is so funny to me, considering like he still be doing crazy stuff. But the thing that stuck with me that he said, I know it's because you love me. And usually you're right in what you're telling me. I just don't be want to hear it or whatever. I don't want to be listening or whatever he said. I don't want to hear. I can't remember exactly how he said it. But I was okay with that and I use that as a moment to say, good, bad, right, wrong, indifferent. What my goal is for you to be okay when you are an adult. If something happens to mommy today, you will be okay at some point. And I may not have done that in the best way or in the most clear way, but that was my goal. Because unfortunately, the placenta is not attached to a handbook. So we just out here figuring it out as we go. And so I know I've made mistakes, but if at the end of the day, if you could understand where I was coming from, I hope that will help you understand, like, you are my literal heart walking this earth. And I know, listen, and you talk about is motherhood selfish? Yeah, because I have to know that you will get hurt.
Yes.
You will be disappointed. You will be let down. You will not always win. Sometimes you're going to be wrong. I can't shield you from it all, but I'm choosing to have you anyway. And I'm choosing to go through this, right? And again, if I could just put you in a bubble and protect you from all the bad things, I could, right? Girl, what's the song? If I could.
I would.
That was a song. And I didn't even appreciate that song until I got older. But if I could, I would shield your innocence from time. But the part of life I gave you isn't mine. That's a bar. Because when I tell you,
yes.
And so I think we should just ask our kids. Our parents didn't do that with us. My mama didn't even say I'm sorry until I think she turned 65. Let me tell you something. Because apologize for what?
I'm still waiting.
No. Listen, you wait long, you wait wrong, because it's not going to happen. But I think that's the difference in us, right? We can go back and say, you know what? Let's talk about this. And so I do think parents check in with your kids. So that's one thing you can definitely do. Just say, hey, especially in your situation, because there's a whole nother set of dynamics going on. And so just check in and just saying, do y'all understand why this had to be this way? Or do you understand it? Let's talk about it. We used to try to have family meetings back in the day. That fell off by the wayside, but sometimes you got to have them.
Yeah.
Sometimes you got to have them.
One thing for sure, I was very good with checking in. I may not have checked in as often as I would have liked, but I really was good at checking in because, again, coming from that psychology background, mental health is real. And so I did not want to have them suffering in silence. That's my thing. I've been teaching for quite a long time, and I always say the first day of class, do not suffer in silence in this class. If you are struggling, you need to let me know. And so I've always made that a point with my kids as well. My oldest, he had a really hard time with his dad changing. Remember, he was their basketball coach, their trainer, just an all-time great dad to them. And so he struggled. He struggled a lot. And he went through a series that he was just mean, he was disrespectful, he was but I knew it was because he was seeing his dad changing. He probably didn't understand everything. He probably wasn't able to verbalize how he felt altogether, and he just did not understand. He was angry, and I tried as much as I could, as hard as I could, check in, and I tried to get him help through school and all of that. And I'm now doing the same thing with Aaliyah, just trying to really get her help in different areas that she's struggling in, because I see the challenges that she's having. And so I think that I am observant enough to know when I need to get those resources in place. But then again, that guilt comes in because what did I not do? What was I not able to do that I now need to bring somebody else in to help? That's a part of it. I have not asked that question. What kind of parent was I? That would definitely be some interesting conversation. I don't know if I am prepared to hear the answer. That'll be my thing. But so, it definitely is a conversation.
If you can let me tell y'all something. If you can let chat roast you,
honey,
you can ask your kids.
People don't know that. People don't know how. No, they don't know yet. Look, that's definitely another episode.
Girl, y'all, I'm so sorry. Look, I'm so sorry, y'all. I'm just raggedy today. Okay, forgive me. I'm so sorry.
Because when I tell you chat roasted me, honey, and I'm like, what?
But do you remember when you told me that? What did you say? You said you should do it too. And what did I tell you?
No. I'm good.
I told you I am not mature enough to handle being roasted by AI. Especially because all they roast was gonna be true. Like, it's one thing you roasting and it ain't true. Honey.
Every last one.
I was not mature enough to handle that, and I knew that. But you could ask your kids. And I will say, and I'll share another vulnerable moment I had as a mom, because understanding that my older son is an adult. He's still my baby. That's still my bookie, right? Yes. But he is a whole ass adult. And so there are some things that he's not going to share with me, and there are some things that he's not going to let me in on. And I remember this is maybe a little bit over a year ago, where we was just like, we were just missing each other. I don't know what the disconnect was. It was just something going on, and I knew something was going on, but he's a really introverted person anyway. He is my total opposite. I'm like, and he is very introverted. Like he's okay being by himself. He's very quiet. He holds things in. But I just knew it was something, and I couldn't put my finger on it. And I'll never forget, one day he was home. I don't know why this particular day I was home, but it was just me and him, and we were just not seeing eye to eye. And I'll never forget, girl, I called him in that living room. I sat on his sofa. We got a big wraparound sofa, and I sat in the corner where I had sofa all around me. I said, come here. And he was like, I was like, no, come here. And he was like, what? I was like, come here. And he sat next to me. I said, nope, girl. I grabbed him. I put him on my lap. I held him as best I could. It's like his butt was beside me, but his upper body was here. I held him, and I just held him to me, and I just started rocking. Y'all know I'm the queen of the rock. And I just started rocking. And he was like, and I held him, I rocked him, I started kissing on his face. I was telling him I love him. I was like, you're still my baby. And girl, and next thing I know, my child broke down and he cried. And he cried. And I was just like, get it out. I knew something was wrong. Get it out. Let's get it out right now. Come on. It's just me and you. Nobody else was here. It was just me and him. And he boo-hooed. I kept holding him. I kept rocking him. I was rubbing his back. I was like, I finally got it out of him. What it was. And that day, I got up that day, I found him a therapist, and I got him in therapy that day. So your mother's intuition was, and I probably still don't know all the gravity of what he was going through. He told me he was able to articulate enough where I was like, okay, let me get you some help. And I did. And he felt so much better after that. Our relationship got better after that. I saw him like getting back to himself again. We can't be afraid of that. And I know that's like in the old Black house, or we're going to say this new age Black home, but the old Black homes, that was something you didn't do. I told y'all, my mama think a whooping can fix anything. And so, listen, honeydew, ginger ale, whooping. If them three things don't fix it, then it's God's will for you to go. But girl, that was a hard thing too, just seeing my child hurting in a way that I couldn't help. And so I had to get a therapist for him. And oh, look, this was the one ethical therapist in the world too. Because I was like, can you just tell me what's going on? She was like, of course I can. And I was just like, blink your eye if I need to be concerned. And she was just like, no, good. I knew better, but I was going to ask anyway. And look, and you should have seen me, but I'm paying you. No, you don't have a FERPA? Is there a FERPA form? No? Okay. All right. And she didn't tell me anything. It hurt me because I was just like, is there something I need to be doing? What do I need to be looking out for? Help a sister out. And she was just like, oh, that's cute. You tried it. But that was hard for me. That was hard, girl. Because I knew I couldn't help him.
I ask every week, and that's where I am. That's where I am now with my baby. I ask every week. Then I even asked her. I said, oh, "Can you tell me? It's confidential, child."
Girl, when you told me, she was like, it's my session. It's between us. I was like, ooh. I mean, you
right. Where's that purple for?
Look, the stuff I don't care about you telling me, you tell me that. You tell me that. Like, I didn't need to know who look.
I don't want to hear most of the things. You won't tell me what I want to know.
What I want to know. You said, look, my youngest one day trying to teach me how to airwalk. I don't want to do that. I don't care about that. I do care about what's happening at school, what's happening in your head. Tell me those things. I don't know. Okay, yeah, show me how to airwalk because you're just not going to stop. Okay. Oh, that's great. Like they
know. Well, but we have to know that what we have done up until this point, what we will continue to do is be the best parents that we can for them. That's all we can do. We're going to make mistakes. Again, we still asking for that instructional manual that will never happen.
That never came. that never came.
Because I promise I was asking. We've been doing the best that we can. And I want to say that I think we've been doing a great job.
We've been doing, girl, we have been doing, let me tell you something, sis, friend, beloved. Not to talk about my students, but when I tell you the way some of these students come to class, we are doing
great.
Our kids are fine. And let me tell y'all something. What I do when I start feeling bad about myself as a mother? Do you know what makes me feel better? Go pull you up an episode of Iyanla Fix My Life. Let me tell you something. You'll be like, I am mother of here. I am doing fine. No, let me go talk to my kids now. I love you. I love you. We're all gonna be. Let me tell you something. You think you losing this mother thing? No, honey. Iyanla, little auntie Iyanla, baby. Them people on them shows. I be like, they let
She
you
on
have
there
a
for a
baby.
reason.
Wait, they
Right,
sent
she's
you
on there
home
for a
with a
reason.
human. They sent you home with a whole human and was like, you know what? Just raise it the best. Okay, I'm doing okay. I'm doing okay.
I think that I'm doing great then.
You are doing good. You are. Hey, because you know why? You know why? Because there are moms way worse than you. You have irrefutable proof. That's that. What we call that is empirical evidence.
There
That
you
is
go.
data. Data or data if you're nasty. That's what that is. You're doing fine.
Oh goodness, I appreciate it because God
You
knows I
are.
need to hear that. I know,
And you know
and I
what?
know we all need to hear that.
We all need to hear it. But I
So,
have met your
Mom, you're doing
children.
great.
And I have met your children. Your children are effing amazing. Like your children are mannerable and sweet. And the fact that I go in there like a firecracker and they clutch their pearls, I'm like, that's good home training. That's good home training. I know that's you. What you said?
Lillian say whatever in a listen.
Listen. But my heart is in the right place. Yeah. Okay. It's in the right place.
Right.
But look, wait till you get if you ever get the nerve up to be around my family, let me tell you, if you ever get the nerve to be around mine and I talk the way I talk and they don't clutch their pearls, you're gonna be like, these babies they don't even know this is not right. They don't even know. Your mama not supposed to say it. No, she's not supposed to talk like that. They don't know. That's not supposed to happen.
Flinch. They don't flinch. And I'm like this. Ooh.
Mm-mm. Mm-mm. They immune. They immune.
Goodness, let's get out of here because oh my gosh. All right, this has been another
Like we should do a
wonderful.
part 3 and
Oh
like
my
maybe release
gosh.
it on a Patreon or something. Cause listen, we could continue to cause
Yeah.
there's so much to motherhood and marriage.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
Like
Yes,
we
it
could
is.
definitely do a part 3 and talk about we talked about how we get back to us, but we could talk about what it means to reconnect with your partner and
Yeah.
communication and all. There's so many places we can go with it. And maybe this is a topic we can bring back from time to
Yes,
time.
definitely,
Yeah.
definitely. Because again,
Yeah.
I'm looking at as we have definitely veered off our script, but yeah,
Script who? Script what?
reconnecting with our partners
Right.
was definitely a
It was
topic.
definitely on there. Yeah, we do be having a script sometimes.
Yeah.
We let the Lord have his way. We let him have his way.
All right. So final thoughts. So ladies, after rediscovering who you are, after all of the trauma, after all of the wiving that you've been doing, the momming you've been doing, the auntying that you've been doing, after you have rediscovered who you are, just make space for who you are. That can just whatever you deem that to be. I remember Kelly did exist before the titles, and it took so many years later for me to rediscover who I was after these titles. I still love being a mom. I still love being a wife. I'm just those things in a different way. I'm now doing those things on my terms. We didn't talk about that, but I'm doing those things on my terms and in my way because I can't get lost again. I have to be me. I love just being alone. My favorite pastime is being in the car, in the driveway, and just sitting there. That's my time out. Lillian laughs at me all the time about that,
Oh,
but that's my time out. That's my time. I'm just there. I'm just perusing. I'll take a nap. That's my me time. I love solo drives. I love drinking coffee. I love those things. And I don't do them often, but those are things that I love to do. I love working my business. I love discovering new things, new skills that I had no idea I had, because I want to do these things forever, pretty much. But I needed to find me again. You need to find you again in whatever way that is. Some of you are still lost in whatever manner that you are. So it's time to rediscover who you are, and you need
Mhm.
to take that time to do that. If this episode somewhat relates to you or is relatable to you, listen to it. Share it with somebody that you feel needs to hear this information as well. Let them know that they have a space that they can find themselves as well. So make sure to follow us. We are on Instagram, we are on Facebook, we are on TikTok. I don't think that TikTok is right, but it's on there. We are on Vimeo. We're on Vimeo right now until we're able to get to YouTube. That's our final destination. But we are
Mhm.
on all the places where you can hear your
Girl, and
favorite
today
podcast.
we found out we were on.
Which
It's two you
one?
missed. Remember the ones or was it
Okay,
yesterday?
so I know we're on Spotify. So we're now on
Yes,
Spotify. We're on Amazon Music. That's
that
where we
one.
are. We're now on
There was another
Amazon Music
one.
and
That's it.
iHeartRadio.
iHeartRadio. Yeah.
Yes, yes. We are now on Amazon Music, iHeartRadio, and Substack. And so wherever you want to listen to your favorite podcast, you can find Mike's, Moms, and Mayhem. Y'all, we need your reviews. We need your subscription. We need your likes. We need your follows. We want to grow our Mayhem community. We want to grow our Mayhem community. So we want you to just love it. We want you to like it. We want you to share it. We want you to follow it, subscribe, all those great places. If you have a Mayhem story, we want to hear from
Hear it.
you. Email
Hear it.
us at info@mikesmomsmayhem.com, and that's info@mikesmomsmayhem.com. Visit us on our website at mikesmomsmayhem.com to connect for anything. Please tell your family, tell a friend, and tell a what? A foe.
A
Because
foe.
they need to hear it too. We all have a little mayhem in our life. So
Yeah.
until next time, let's keep the mics loud. Let's keep the mom life real and embrace the mayhem. I am Kelly.
And I'm Lillian.
We're signing off for now. See you later.
Bye.